Hey, shalom, 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 lakam, which is peace unto you all. Hayawam tawab la atam zach, yakam yawam on Chagado, Charlotte, which is good day. This is your brother Yawam from the J-Man's camp in Charlotte. Nachamatam kaya, hamalakata shamayim kwara, repent ye for. The kingdom of heaven is at hand, call layam la la, banawa Yahweh, bahasham Yahweh shai. Bahasham ruchak, wadashwa mashana, la zakwanim na wamalakim, shurachagado, which is our praises to our Father Yahweh, which means he exists. Bahasham in the name Yahweh Shai delivers in double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. So this is the app APMX. All right, and it ultimately goes into, gold and silver stocks and also platinum and so on and so forth, the different precious metals. All right, and I wanted to read I wanted to read some information off of here and then get a couple precepts. I don't want to zaza about Nayapalo as well. This is a beautiful edification through the spirit. So it says, dear valued customer, in an effort to not sound like a record on repeat, markets continue to accelerate. Gold, silver, and platinum continue to set record highs, setting levels many of us could not have imagined in such a short period of time. We are experiencing volumes that we have not seen in our history. This past weekend alone, order volume reached nearly 7 times that of a normal weekend. Compounding these challenges, Oklahoma City experienced one of the largest snow events in history. We always put the safety of our employees first, resulting in the shutdown of fulfillment and are meant for the weekend. We are up to 70% strength, in which really I wanted to get just the beginning portion of this. It says, in an effort not to sound like a record on repeat, markets continue to accelerate. Gold, silver, and platinum continue to set record highs, hitting levels many of us could not have imagined in such a short period of time. We are experiencing volumes that we have not seen in our history. All right. And ultimately, gold and silver is on a skyrocket, or it is skyrocketing. All right. And this is manifold, you see, because actual gold and silver is going up, you see, but then also the stock of the elect, first and foremost, is going up. All right. So I just want to get a couple precepts going into that. And as we see right here, a couple moments ago, maybe like 10 minutes ago, was that like gold was at $5,311 or something like that. And then silver was at 114, but it's increased in the last like few minutes or whatever. So again, the stock of the elect is going up, but then also gold and silver is on the rise, you see, because the value of the dollar is going down. So let's get a couple precepts. Let's get we'll get Revelation chapter 13 and actually, let me get Revelation chapter 16 or chapter 6. This is Revelation 6 and verse 6. It says, "And I heard a voice in the midst, I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." All right, and ultimately, it says a measure of wheat for a penny, so it's going to be a certain amount of money, all right, for a certain amount of food. Things is going to be very rationed out, all right. And being that, things are going to be rationed out, that means that ultimately goes into how things are going to be hyperinflated, so pretty much, the dollar, all right, it's going to be a lot of money ultimately, to receive of, your basic common day goods. All right, and the reason why I bring that up is because the dollar is being inflated. So what are people doing in these times? They're going over to gold and they're going into silver. All right, let's get this word for penny. And it says denarion. It says containing 10, a Roman silver coin in New Testament time. It took its name from being equal to 10 asses. A number after 217 BC increased to 16, about 3.898 grams, or 0.1375 ounces. It was the principal silver coin of the Roman Empire. From the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, it would seem that a denarius was then the ordinary pay for a day's wages, and which is going to take a day's wages ultimately to get your basic goods, all right, your food, all right, and so on and so forth, because things are going to be hyperinflated. I'm gonna get this word real fast. This is the word for silver, you see, because right now, everybody ultimately. I'm gonna get this. This is Bara Ashiath, Genesis chapter 13 and verse 2. All right, and it says, I'm sorry, verse 1. It says, "In Abram, and which before Abraham was Abraham, his name was Abram, or Abram, excuse me." And it says, "And Abram went up unto Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and in gold." All right, so that shows true riches. All right, let's get this word for rich. And it says kabod. It says to be heavy, weighty, be rich. honorable, burdensome. It says to get oneself glory. All right, it says pretty much the point, to be rich, to be weighty, you see. And the reason why it says to be weighty, one reason that says to be weighty, you see, because when you weigh out gold and silver, all right, that shows true riches, the weight of it. All right, you got more weight of gold and silver. That shows that you got true riches. That's why, hence the term. All right, they do the measurements in gold and silver by the ounce. A troy ounce of silver, right now, as we got, was $115, in which that stock is continually going up. So people are switching over to the true riches, you see, because the USD, it has no value. All right, it never had any value. It's a fiat currency. So let's also get this. Let's get Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16. Well, actually, I'm gonna get this. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, and we'll get verse 12. And it says, for wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, because the true riches is going to be these scriptures. The understanding of the scriptures is the true wisdom. All right, because ultimately, in the day of the different set calamities and adversities, all right, truthfully, in the end, ultimately, all right, one has gold and silver. That gold and silver isn't going to deliver them. Because ultimately, the works that one has put out amongst the planet Earth, that's what's going to make a man righteous. All right, the amount of money you got ain't going to amount to anything. So it says, verse 12, it says, for wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. Wisdom is the true defense, but you see, money also acts as a defense as well. All right. And again, that's why people are going over into they're trading over their USDs, their fiat currency. All right. And they're getting true silver and gold, you see, because they're getting the true form of money, which is silver and gold. All right. Because ultimately that's ultimately true money. All right. And those, in these times, people are actually going to be bartering that. A lot of people that have the knowledge of that, that they're going to be using that as a means to defend themselves. All right, because when you look at gold and silver, all right, silver is not just used as currency. All right, they use it for these electric cars, they use it for electronics, they use it for medicine, and so on and so forth. So it's a commodity. It's a demand for it. All right, but that demand, all right, as I said previously. All right. In the end, if one isn't on the correct side of the Lord, they're going to be destroyed. So no amount of gold or silver is going to save them. You see, but again, just going into the point that's pretty much what's on people's minds is ultimately retaining their wealth, so to speak. So it says, for wisdom is a defense and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. And ultimately, having this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding gives us true life. You see, because gold and silver is just a means to survive. All right, to get the best things. Right now, if you had gold and silver, all right, and somebody wanted to barter with you, you can get the best things that captivity has to offer, but it's captivity. All right, so ultimately, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding ultimately allows us for us to thrive, you see. So let's get another one. Let's get Revelation chapter 13, and we'll get verse 15. And it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And what ultimately that image of the beast is talking about the system. All right, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak. All right, and it's speaking through the laws and legislation that they're pushing forth. What coincides with that NWO. To ultimately bring forth, all right, his true goal, which is that charagma. Which he's going to get. The overwhelming majority of the people, but he's not going to get to the elect. All right, that's why scripture said, but wisdom giveth life to them that have it, you see, because ultimately those that are going to receive that eternal life is going to be the elect. All right. But it says, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So those that don't want to get along with this system and get along with the laws and legislations and things that's constituted by this devil, all right, they're ultimately going to be X'd out from society. All right, and then it's going to come a certain point in time to where he's going to come down on those that don't want to get with his system. Verse 16, it says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a charagma in their right hand or in their foreheads. All right, and that charagma, all right, which is it's the Greek term or the Greek word, all right, which stands for the CHIP, all right, which is the RFID CHIP. That Esau, Edom, so-called white man's coming down. All right, that's going to be it's going to be a subdermal device. All All right, it's going to be connected to buying and selling. So reading it again, and he causeth all. That word for causeth goes into constitute. All right, both small and great. All right, those that are small in the society, insignificant. Those that are ultimately weighty and significant in the society. All right, so your celebrities. All right, and those that are poor. It says rich and poor. Those that got money, those that don't have money, free and bond, those that are ultimately walking around freely, and those that are ultimately enslaved, and actual prison systems and slave systems, or jail systems, the penal system. So it says to receive a charagma in their right hand or in their foreheads. All right, and again, that's the RFID CHIP. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the charagma or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So those that don't get with the system, those that don't take up the charagma, they're not ultimately going to be able to do business. All right, and they can't do business. It's going to be very stringent. You know, so those that don't have the Lord on their side, where they're eventually, you know, going to be destroyed. You know. So I'm gonna get a couple more. Let's get we'll get Isaiah Yeshaya chapter 13, and we'll get verse 12, because again the stock of gold is, or the price of gold is going up. It says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. All right, and gold and silver is the true forms of money. You see, so being that gold is being likened or is being more, all right, than fine gold, that shows how more expensive that, you know, a man of the Lord is going to be in these days that we coming up into now. And it's been constantly going up. All right. At first, you know, years ago, it was thousands of dollars. Gold was in like the $2,000 or around about $2,500. Silver probably about like $50. Just in this last year, silver has tripled. All right, because the true gold and silver is being increased. All right, the elect. All right, the stock of the elect is ultimately rising. All right, and that's because of the said parables and everything due to prophecy. Really, that's the true natural order of things anyway. All right, starting with the Lord Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai and on down. All right, that's how it's supposed to be, because what the Lord is doing. Let's get this real fast. This is Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 26, and it says, and I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. All right, and you know the judges is being restored. All right, the judges ultimately is that true gold, that true silver, those true precious metals. You see, because going back to the scripture we got in Genesis chapter 13. All right, ultimately they went into how Abraham was rich in gold and silver and cattle. All right, and what you know that stock. All right, the true gold and silver is being raised back up in the spirit, you know, because Lord ultimately is restoring the judges as at the first, you know, because this world is going to be ran in righteousness. You know, right now it's ran in wickedness. All right, so I'm gonna get one more and that'll be it. But this is Isaiah chapter 32 and verse 1. Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. All right, because it says the glorious future. All right, the subtitle. All right, because what's going on right now? Again, to reiterate, the world is being ran in wickedness, as pursuant to Job, Ayawab 9 and verse 24. You see, it says, behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. All right, the Lord, Yahweh Shai, is going to reign in righteousness. All right, as pursuant to Isaiah the 9th chapter. It says, and princes shall rule in judgment. It says, and a man shall be a hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. And that ultimately illustrates how rare and how important the man of the Lord is going to be in these times. You see, a hiding place from the wind, you know, the destroying wind. All right, the ICBM nuclear missiles, you know, because ultimately a man of the Lord is going to represent a covering, all right, for those that's under him, you know. It says, and a covert from the tempest. All right, and a covert is somewhere, you know, you hide, you know, from a storm. It says, as rivers of water in a dry place, as a shadow of a great rock in a weary land, which a shadow of a great rock ultimately is talking about protection. All right, and then it says, as rivers of water in a dry place, you know, so if you see a river of water in a desert, you know, you will run to it. And that's hence, you know, why Isaiah 4 and 1 is going to happen, how it's going to happen, you see, because a true man, the Lord is going to be rare in these times, and we can see that, you know, by gold and silver going up, you know. So just wanted to go into that. I don't want to Zaza by Naya Apollos, that was a beautiful edification to the spirit. I don't want to Zaza Yashi Yawam Tawablu as well. You have a good day. Washalam Lakam. Just peace to you all. Shalom, shalom.